Hello, everyone. I think we are live, so hopefully you can hear me. My name is Katerina Dima, and I'm the IFMSA Liaisons Officer for Medical Education Issues. And I'll be hosting today's webinar of IFMSA-Egypt, who kindly invited me to share a bit about external representation in medical education. So for those of you that do not know me, I recently graduated from medical school, and I'm originally from Greece. And I've been in this position for 2 years. So I have accumulated quite a lot of experience in this particular topic. So I hope I can do a good job in sharing some of the things that we do in IFMSA in terms of SCOMI extrep. Now, I thought I should start with a very basic question of what it is that we actually do when we talk about external representation. And this applies not only to medical education, but to all of the topics that we actually work on. And I would say the main tool or the main pillar of our work is attending important events, whether that is global meetings, whether that is conferences where we often get the opportunity to speak and to share the work that we are doing as IFMSA. Sometimes in those meetings, like in the World Health Assembly, we have the opportunity to organize side events on topics that are of importance to us, whether that is with our partners or whether it is on our own. We also get the opportunity to do a lot of campaigns and run our own projects that we externalize towards third parties, again, in the essence of raising awareness and shedding light on important topics. And of course, something that's very relevant for us in this particular month of June, we also prepare the policy documents and the policy briefs. So essentially the documents that present the position of IFMSA on a particular topic. And we have quite a few of them in medical education as well, and I'll be sharing them with you. But I would say that they are the culmination of the opinions of 1.3 million medical students. So they do hold a lot of importance. So that is a bit of an overview of what exactly it is that we're doing in our external representation work. But that might sound a bit confusing. So if I could put it in one sentence, what it is that we have to do is we have to make sure that medical students have a say in the global scheme of medical education. So we try to share the opinions of our members, the opinions of the federation, and make sure that they are heard by the people that need to hear them. So by the big decision makers, by the big organizations that get to give standards, that they get to create the standards, and that get eventually to influence medical education in most countries out there in the world. So it is an important task, it is a big job, and it requires a lot of effort, but it's not as complicated as long as you actually have a very good plan. And how do we actually plan our external representation? Medical education, as you all know, is a very vast area. It includes lots of different subtopics, but it's not humanly possible for one liaison officer who works in medical education to be doing everything. After all, we're just a bunch of medical students who do this as volunteer work on the side. So time is of the essence. And in order to be able to produce significant outcomes, we have to choose what we are going to focus on. And that is how we prioritize. You may have heard of the global priorities, you may have not, but in a one-sentence description, global priorities are the topics that IFMSA chooses through its members, as we request your input always before we decide on them and vote on them. And these are effective for 1 year. And in the year 2018 to 2019, we have two very, I would say, deep SCOMI topics. One is the global health workforce, and the other is social accountability in medical schools. And you may have seen a lot of documents sent out, a lot of new initiatives taken in these particular areas this year. So for example, for the global health workforce, I could mention our involvement with the Global Health Workforce Network Youth Hub, or in social accountability, I could mention the social accountability courses, the online ones that we developed with a partner. These were all part of our initial plan at the beginning of the year through the global priorities. So we sat down, we identified the topics, we identified some actions that we could take on them, and some indicators to make sure that we could measure our work, and then we just dive right in. But apart from those two clear SCOMI topics, we also have two broader SCOMI topics, which touch more on the exchange side of things, so SCOPI and SCORI. One is access to research and research education for SCORI, and the other is global health education for SCOPI. But we have to remember that the ultimate goal of both SCORI and SCOPI is to provide a very high quality and life-changing educational and also cultural experience. So they cannot really exist without the work that SCOMI is doing, which is also why the Liaison Officer for Medical Education is responsible for those two as well. Now, this is in general, I think, a great tip as well for you to keep in mind. If whether you're working on the internal aspect of things, or whether you're working on the external aspect of things, it's always important to set out a few areas that you will choose to work on, because as much as we love medical education, again, we're only a few people and we cannot do everything. Although we can try. I think we do try a lot in IFMSA. Now, I mentioned a bit of the policy documents and that we attend a lot of, and some of them are very important, very high level. You have, I would say, the main figures of medical education attending. So how do we approach them? What do we talk about? What do we advocate for? And the main tool that we use for advocacy as IFMSA is our policy documents. Those documents that I mentioned that present the official position of IFMSA on a single topic. These documents are prepared by IFMSA officials together with IFMSA members so that they can be fully representative of the Federation, and then they're voted upon by NMOs. And we actually will have some of them for you to vote upon in August meeting as well. So I added the ones that are active right now, because each policy document only has a validity of 3 years, and then we have to prepare another one or revote the same one. And some that you may have heard of before is the IFMSA policy document on social accountability in medical schools, which is the document that outlines that we believe in social accountability in medical education, that we think it's an important tool to be used, and it's an important tool to achieve universal health coverage, to elevate the quality of medical education, to produce more mindful physicians even. Everything that we believe is there. We also have the IFMSA policy document on the global health workforce and the ongoing crisis, because we know that by 2030, there will be a shortage of health professionals in the world of 18 million, which is an incomprehensible number even. We have the policy document on accreditation and quality assurance, which was voted last August. This document outlines that we believe, for example, in the importance of accreditation as a mechanism to assure quality, and we believe in the recognition of accreditation as well, because not only should medical education follow standards and evidence-based procedures, but accreditation as a process itself should be evidence-based. We also have the IFMSA policy document on open access, open education, open data. This is, I would say, a bit more relevant to the people in SCORI, but at the same time, open education is a very important tool for us in SCOMI and open educational resources, because what it talks about is education being accessible to all, and the resource for education not being limited to only to people with, I would say, most resources, mostly financially, in their hands. We also have the IFMSA policy document on access to research and research education, which was voted in March. And in this August, hopefully, we will have 2 new documents who will be relevant to medical education. One is going to be global health education, and it will outline the importance of it, how it can be integrated into the curriculum, and why it should be integrated into the curriculum. And the other one is going to be on primary healthcare, and it will include a component of why should primary healthcare be a core of medical education itself, and how it can contribute to creating more community-minded physicians working towards the health improvement of the population. So this is another good tip for you to keep in mind if you are interested in working more on external representation, and I will give you an overview at the end as well, that a policy document is an excellent tool to share your position as an organization with the people and to outline specific points that you want to advocate for. So let's say that you want to advocate to your medical school to include family medicine, since we're talking about primary healthcare course. If it's not included, you will have to outline that in a policy document and show that policy document to the relevant people to tell them, hi, we're 20,000, that's a very random number, Egyptian medical students, and we all believe that family medicine is an integral component of medical education, and we have this document to prove it. So whenever we're talking to external partners, whether they're people that already know us or whether they're new people that we've never met before, we can never present something as a position of IFMSA unless it is outlined in the policy document and voted upon by our members, which is why these documents are so crucial in all of the liaison officers' work and in all of the work we do in external representation. We need this official documentation in order to be able to discuss with the externals and third parties. Now, since I talk about partners, and we advocate towards them, we attend their meetings, this is a long slide, and I apologize, I also have one slide with logos, but I figured I might as well add all of the names of the people that we are currently in very close relationships with in terms of medical education. Now, these close relationships might be formal, so we may have signed together with them a document that's called a Memorandum of Understanding. You may hear it as MOU, or they may be informal, so we don't have a formalized connection. But that doesn't mean that we can't work with them. It's that those formal signed documents are very good for archiving and for I would say not being able to run away if that ever comes up. They're more binding, but with most of our partners, we work perfectly fine without having signed something. So I would say that probably the two most important partners that we work with are the World Federation for Medical Education, WFME, and AME, which originally stood for an Association for Medical Education in Europe, but they've become way more globalized in the past 10 years. So now it stands for an International Association for Medical Education. So both of them are organizations that are relevant to everyone, regardless of where you are in the world. Now, specifically for the EMR, there's an organization called AME-EMR. You may as well hear them as AMEMR, both are correct, which is the Association for Medical Education in the EMR. This is a regional organization that we work very closely with at the moment. In the past 2 years, our relationships became a lot closer than what they were. And they're the most relevant ones for anyone in the EMR region. And they are organized in terms of national medical education associations. They are their members, and they have connections to most of the medical schools across the region as well. Now, when it comes to social accountability, our two main partners have almost the same name, which either makes it easier or more difficult, depending on how you look at it. We work with the NET, and we work with the NET TAF. You may hear them as TAF. The NET is the Training for Health Equity Network. It is an organization that mostly works on capacity building of health professionals, on transformative education and socially accountable education. And actually, they were the organization that helped us develop the Social Accountability Toolkit, the online resource that is available on the IFMSA website. And I hope that by now most of you have heard about it in the past. Then the network towards Unity for Health, the NET TAF, also works a lot in capacity building. It is more of a convening space for professors from all over the world with a special interest in social accountability and community-based health and education. And every year they organize the biggest social accountability conference in August or September. This year it's going to be in Australia, for example. Oh, I also probably should mention, even though I'm going to mention before that, AME organizes the biggest medical education conference in the world, which I'm 99% sure most of you have heard of. Then we also work a lot with Scholar RX, and this is our only sponsorship agreement in IFMSA. Scholar RX is an organization that aims to build a global medical education curriculum. So an online platform that medical schools, regardless of where they are, they can use to teach students. And it includes online resources, it includes videos for students and other teaching aids for lecturers and professors. And Scholar X, as I mentioned, is a sponsorship agreement, which means that they are very kindly giving us funds to lower the cost for attending AMEDs and TMEDs in the pre-GA, so the workshops for medical education that we're organizing, which is always very nice. Then we have another partner, which is called WONCA. WONCA is the Global Family Doctors Association, and we also work on that with them a lot in terms of social accountability in medical education. They give us experts a lot, and they give us a lot of input on the work that we are doing. We also work with them on other topics that do not so much fall under SCOME. Then when it comes to open access, open education, open data, open educational resources, so let's say having your textbooks available without having to pay $100 or $200 for them, that is the organization Spark and Right Research Coalition. That's the people that we work with for this purpose. And they also organize a conference every year around November and October, to which we contribute. We're part of the organizing committee, and specifically the person holding my position. And there will be more information shared about them in the coming 2 months on the IFMSA servers, in case you're interested in participating in the conference. It's important to note, attendees get fully funded to attend, which is always nice, and it helps us overcome barriers of participation. And as something that I mentioned briefly before, when it comes to the global health workforce, it comes as no surprise that our partner is the Global Health Workforce Network. And what the Global Health Workforce Network, or GWEN, is an organization created within the space of the World Health Organization, so the WHO, that focuses specifically on this particular topic. And IFMSA is co-leading a space between this space, within this space, which is called the Youth Hub, where we bring together all youth organizations related to health and the health professions to discuss and convene about the global health workforce crisis and how we as youth can help tackle it and represent the voice of youth. So it is quite a big deal, and it is an important part of the work that we are doing on the topic. Here you can see some of the logos. I think that might be easier for you to remember these people. And if you'd like to know more about any of them, you can always contact me. You can always send me an email or send me a message on another platform, I guess, if that is easier for you. And I will be sharing some information about the three, I would say, in this particular case, most important ones. So WFME, AMI, and AMI EMR. So, as I mentioned, AMI is an organization that is focused on the excellence of medical education. So that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to produce resources for teachers all over the world to use. They are trying to create a convening space for people passionate about medical and health professions to come together, to discuss and to learn from each other. And one fantastic way that they do that is through the conference, the AMI conference, which happens every year in August. It attracts 4,000 participants, their deans, their teachers, their students. There might be people from the government who are responsible for health professions education. And within the AMI conference, IFMSA has a very good opportunity for students who wish to attend and who wish to participate actively, and that is through the Student Task Force. So a group of about 70 students who help out during the conference logistically. And they also get funding to attend it. This year, the conference will be at the end of August in Vienna. Another thing that AMI is doing for students, and I have to note that as one of our partners there, the most supportive towards student action is a student initiative grant. So if you have a project that works towards improving medical education, but it has to be focused on medical education. So for example, a project on curriculum development, on assessment methods, on teaching methods, on simulation, then you are more than welcome to apply for the grant. This round for this semester has finished, and we're now in the process of evaluating, and there will be another round next semester. So keep an eye out for that. As AMI, I mentioned, is an organization that aims to promote excellence in education. For this reason, they also give out awards that are called Aspire Awards to medical schools that excel in specific areas, such as social accountability or innovation in medical education, or curriculum development or faculty development. So if your school is particularly good in any of those areas, you can reach out to them and encourage them to apply, because it is really a very, very big award and a very, very big honor. And as AMI is an organization that aims, again, for excellence, they also have two major publications. They have 2 journals for medical education that I encourage you to read. One is Medical Teacher. It's one of the most important journals for medical education worldwide, but unfortunately it's a subscription journal. So if you have access through your medical school, definitely check it out. But the other one is called MedEd Publish, and it's open. It's completely open access, so you can always check what new articles are coming up, what's the latest research in medical education, what are other schools doing out there. When it comes to WFME, the World Federation for Medical Education, their work revolves mostly around standards. They produce standards for medical education, whether it's undergraduate, postgraduate, or continuing medical education. They're under a recognition program of accreditation. As I mentioned, accreditation is the process of assuring the quality of medical school, and the recognition is the process of assuring the quality of the accreditation process itself. So it's like a double mechanism of ensuring that all the right steps are being followed. And WFME is running this recognition program of accreditation, which is at the moment very, very important due to a specific deadline that you may have or have not heard before. But an organization called IFMG, which is responsible together with another organization of running the USMLE, has announced since 2011 that they will not be accepting students after 2023 unless they come from schools who are accredited by accreditation agencies that are recognized by WFME. That sounds extremely complicated, but to simplify it, if we have X medical school and X medical school is accredited by Y accreditation agency, this Y accreditation agency has to be recognized by WFME in order for you to be able to go train in the US. And this is only the first step. There are quite a lot of other countries who are developing similar, I would say, decisions at the moment, but we cannot share anything unless it is absolutely certain. An opportunity that WFME has as an organization for medical students, and specifically IFMSA members, is the WFME internships. So every 3 months, we have an IFMSA intern at the WFME office in France who gets to contribute to the work that they are doing. And these interns are mostly responsible on developing the World Directory of Medical Schools. Now, the World Directory of Medical Schools is another one of the important points that WFME is working on, and it is essentially an online database that tries to track all medical schools in the world, which we might think it's easy. I mean, why wouldn't we know of a medical school if it existed? But it surprisingly is not, and it's really difficult to track all of the new medical schools that are popping up. At the moment, if I'm not mistaken, there are about 2,600 medical schools in the directory, but it is estimated there are more than 3,000 all over the world, and there are new ones popping up every day. Then lastly, I'll mention a bit about AMIMR, or AMI-EMR, which is, as I mentioned, a regional organization. And in fact, AMIMR is the organization that represents the EMR in the World Federation of Medical Education Executive Council. Just like IFMSA has regions, WFME also has regional associations, which are more independent than IFMSA regions, as they are their own entities. And what AMIMR does is working on the quality medical education within the region, and it tries to bring together professors and experts from the universities in the region as well. And they also have focus areas. Just like IFMSA has global priorities, AMIMR also have their own, and they have one group on social accountability, also called GOSA. You may have seen them in the server because they are the organization that helped us develop the IFMSA online courses on social accountability, which are currently running for the first time, and they will run again next year, hopefully with the lessons that we learned from this particular time. So this is just a very short overview of the three of our main medical education partners. But again, if you'd like more information on any of them or on the ones that I didn't mention, just make sure to send me an email or pop me a message, and I would be happy to help you. Now, I mentioned a lot about organizations and the things that we do, but the most important point is how you can get involved and how you can translate the global action that we're doing to local action. So in terms of how you can get involved, I think it's very, very important to follow what we are doing through social media and by being subscribed to the IFMSA server. So keeping an eye out for things, because everything that happens is shared there. So you can look out for calls for delegations to meetings, like the opportunity to be part of the Amy Student Task Force. Now that comes out every January every year, so keep an eye out next January for the call, or February, depends. You can be part of the policy document preparations, which is a very, very big lesson and capacity building exercise in itself. You can see how a policy is developed, how an IFMSA position is identified. Developing a policy document also takes a lot of research and reading for a particular topic, so it's a great opportunity for you to sharpen your skills. And you can either be part of what is called the Policy Commission, and that's another discussion on for today, or by being a part of a small working group that will create the document from zero. You can provide input to people attending IFMSA meetings. Let's say the World Health Assembly, we might send a call for input to IFMSA members to share their thoughts on what should we advocate for, who should we contact, what should be our main point of focus for that particular meeting. And that's why we can vocalize your concerns. It's also highly encouraged that you attend relevant workshops. So whether you want to learn more about medical education or more about external representation, AMET and TMET is always a good option. So these are the medical education focused workshops. There is a workshop usually that we do in August on social accountability as well. And if you are more interested in global health and external representation, not just in SCOME, then there's a workshop called Global Health Advocates, which runs in every GA almost, that I highly encourage you to attend, because it will teach you a lot about the international processes. And of course, last but not least, attending the IFMSA meetings is a key point. That's where you meet other students. That's where you hear firsthand about the new things that are coming up, the people that we're working with, the main decisions that are being taken. And you're there and you can see it with your own eyes. So if you have the chance to attend an IFMSA General Assembly or a regional meeting, I highly, highly, highly encourage you to do it, because it might be 1 week, but it can be an extremely life-changing week that will introduce you to an array of new topics and new concepts that you had never thought of. So these are just some examples of how you can get involved. But the most important point is to keep an eye out and follow the work that people are doing, either through social media or through the monthly reports, or just by reaching out to them if you're interested in their job. And definitely last, but definitely not least, is the whole Think Global and Act Local concept. Because we're doing a lot in the international level, but what does it mean for people at the local level? And we have to remember that IFMSA is a global organization, and it can't impose, of course, any activities or any actions to its members. We highly encourage you to do certain things, but it is you who have to take this from theory to practice. And I really want to stress this particular point. So some of the things that I would encourage you to do if you want to get more involved locally and nationally, number one is to set priorities for your work. So whether you're part of the national team or whether you're part of the local team, talking to them and identifying specific areas of focus for a year or for 2 years or for however long you believe is a key first step in identifying specific actions as well, measuring them and holding yourself accountable. It's a great accountability measure. So try to translate the global priorities that IFMSA has to the national level. They can be the same or they can be completely different. That should depend on what your members think and what the main problems in your country are at the moment. You can also translate policy documents nationally and locally. So if your NMO or if your team is not experienced in developing policy documents, just take the ones that IFMSA has, because they have been voted, they're official at the moment. And you can either literally translate them into your language, or you can use them as examples to develop your own. And those policy documents will really help you in your advocacy work and your external representation work, because they will provide you with an official document to show to the people that need to see it. And maybe they will disregard it, maybe not, but it's going to be up to you to capture their attention. But you will need that formal document somewhere to say that, yes, this is what I think, this is what I believe, and this is what you should be doing. which is essentially what the policy document is. Something very, very important that I think deserves its own online webinar, or just webinar, is mapping out national associations of international partners. So something we call stakeholder mapping. You can look out for the people that IFMSA is working with and whether they have national entities or national organizations that you could reach out to and start form a relationship with. Or you can do a general mapping of the national associations that are relevant to the work of SCOMI, for example, and create a database for them. And then depending on your priorities and depending on your positions, you can reach out to them and propose specific activities. In general, I think since IFMSA has been around for a long time, it includes a variety of different people, and we tend to learn from our mistakes. You can take a look at the procedures that IFMSA is holding for things. So how do we select people for delegations? How do we approach externals? How do we vote on our global priorities? How do we develop them? Just keep an eye out into these procedures, read more about them, see how we do them, and then try to implement similar ones in your NMO or in your local committee. And that's something that a lot of the NMOs are doing, and it is really helping them develop. So I highly encourage you to do that as well. Something that we can never overlook is campaigns and projects that are aimed towards third parties, that are aimed towards raising awareness, that are aimed towards bringing attention to a specific topic. And campaigns, whether they're online or physical and local, they're a very, very important tool for advocacy as well. It's not just policy document. You can raise your voice and literally raise your voice through social media today and really raise awareness and shed light to a specific issue. I think right now there's a great example about this going on with the ongoing crisis in Sudan, where people have taken to social media and they're talking about this and they're making sure that everyone else knows, since media is not doing it on their own so much. You can do something similar for your own issues or your own priorities in medical education, just using the means that technology has provided us with. And of course, if you ever feel lost or if you ever don't know where to turn to, just ask for help. We have all the liaison officers, each one working on a specific topic, who are there and ready to help you. We have the directors who are always there for you and your regional assistants. So you have nothing to lose just by asking a question or sharing a project you're working on with your RA and getting their input. Maybe they'll give you some ideas that you hadn't thought of before and elevate the activity that you're trying to develop. And I think that's, in general, a very, very short overview of our external representation, medical education, how we do it, who are we working with, what are these people that you're working with doing, how do we mostly advocate, and how you can get involved. And I really, really hope that more and more of you will get involved, because it's a great opportunity to learn and to develop yourself as well, but also to contribute towards the improvement of medical education through those little actions every one of us is doing. And don't forget that IFMSA works on topics globally, but it is up to you to make the real changes, because I truly believe that the real change happens on the local level, by local officers, by national officers. Those are the people that really make a significant difference. And it's much, I say, there's a much more of a sense of community, and you can talk to people directly and you can develop your activities more easily. So don't overlook getting involved in the local and national level as well, and just going for the international one. I, for one, can honestly say that I really missed the work that we were doing in my local committee. And I think that's all from my side, from the information that I wanted to share. So I hope you have any questions. I think we have two. So one question is, how can we address global health workforce issues on a local level? And that is an excellent question. And the first one is identifying what are the main global health workforce issues on the local level. So is it a problem of no availability of health professionals? Do you not have enough? Do you not train enough? If that's the case, you should probably advocate towards medical schools or towards your Ministry for Education. So that it will depend on, does your medical school decide how many people they're going to train, or does the government decide how many people are going to graduate every year? Now, for each question, you will have a different action that will be developed. Now, if it's not a question of availability, is it a question of accessibility? So is it that you have enough doctors, but they're all concentrated in big cities and there are no doctors in rural areas? Then a very good tool to use is social accountability. So advocating towards your medical schools to develop more socially accountable medical curricula, to include more outreach programs, to include more rotations in rural areas and rural health centers and things like that, because it's evidence-based that they can really encourage students to pursue primary healthcare careers in the future, to work in rural areas. Just taking medicine outside of the city and putting it all over the country, that's always an excellent tool, and it's a very transformative experience as well. Then, is it the problem of acceptability? So maybe you have enough doctors, maybe they're in the right place, but maybe they're not trained to address the problem of the population. So much time working in your medical school and studying epidemiological issues of other countries, but not your own. So let's say you study more about the US rather than Egypt, then the doctors that will go to work tomorrow, they won't really know how to address the local issues. They might know how to address international issues, but that's not what we really want. In which case, you should probably advocate towards your medical school and use policy documents, of course, build campaigns, get momentum, and try to change your curriculum to be more relevant, of course. And at the end, is it a problem of quality? Is it just that there's poor quality of education, which means poor quality of doctors as well? And that's where the whole work of WFME comes in, and standards of medical education and accreditation. So in which case, I would encourage you to advocate towards accrediting your medical school, so having them reviewed by an independent agency that identifies areas of improvement for them, or says, you guys are doing a great job. Now, I think probably the hardest problem is the availability, because if you're just not training enough people, or if you just do not have enough working spaces for them, because an issue is that some countries train enough doctors, but then there are no positions, no residency spots for these doctors, then it usually has to be advocacy towards your government, and it's usually the central government, not the local one. That takes nationwide effort. It's not something that one local committee can do on their own. It's something that your whole NMO will have to tackle together, and you'll have to direct a lot of resources towards, because your government is your most difficult stakeholder for most of us. I mean, if you're in Denmark, it's probably not that hard, but for most of us, governments are not willing to listen, and you somehow have to make them listen. And that's where big campaigns and big actions are always helpful. Now, for an example, is what is currently ongoing in Morocco with the strike of the medical students, which is a very, very, very strong action. And they're actually having a lot at stake. They're endangering their entire semester to solve this problem that they're currently having, which is a workforce issue. So I think I didn't really give you one way of addressing the problem, but I can't, because it really is going to depend on what the problem is. So if we can specify it, I can also give you more action points. Then the second question is, how can I participate in policy writing? And as I mentioned, there are three main pathways, I would say. One is to be part of the small working groups that will write the policy. So this come out sometime in April for the August meeting, and then sometime in November for the March meeting. It's usually 5-6 people from different regions, and they get to do all the writing. Then you can either be part of the policy commission, which is the team that reviews the document. So the small working group writes it, drafts it, and then the policy commission will review it, and they'll say, yes, this is good, well done, you guys, and they will integrate actually the input that we receive from NMOs. So for example, at the moment, we have opened the call for input to all policy documents towards the NMOs. We're hoping we'll get some thoughts from them. So another way that you can get actually involved is to provide input to the policy documents that we have developed. And you can do that right now. Last but not least, if you're more experienced in policy writing, you can be part of the policy reviewing committee, which is a committee that reviews all the policy documents for submission, all of them, and they give a recommendation. The recommendation is, again, just a recommendation. We don't have to follow it. It's not mandatory. But they give a recommendation on should this be adopted, should this not be adopted. So they have more of an, I guess, an advisory role in this whole procedure. So there are these four things: small working group to draft, policy commission, just provide input, again, super important, or policy reviewing committee. So I hope that answers your question a bit. Do we have any other questions from the floor? I think I hear none. Yep. In which case, I will just say again, if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out and to talk to me whenever. I hope I did not tire you with too much talking. I tend to talk a lot. That's the thing. And thank you all very much for attending. And remember, I'm just always one email away. And I hope that you got a bit inspired and you're going to develop new activities and you're going to work more in external representation, because at the end of the day, it's you that are going to make the real change. So that's all, folks. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.